Okay, good morning, fellow mentors.
Good morning. Good morning.
And the two dynamic ladies running the whole guest organization, is that fair to say?
Only
Or
ladies.
just about,
We'll
one-third
get
of
an
it?
argument here.
I want to begin with a question. And that question is, how many of your mentees, for those of you who have mentees, had developed a business model?
1%.
None?
1%.
1%?
Yeah, that's a pretty good guess. Pretty
Okay.
good.
But all of your mentees had a business plan, I take it, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to have them as a mentee.
If they're an
Yeah, they wouldn't have
entrepreneurship
gone
mentor.
through- Right, entrepreneur.
Someone at the stage of reading page 1.
Okay.
I have a question. What do you mean by business model?
That's what I'm gonna talk about.
What's
You'll-
the
you'll
Do
be
you
fam-
mean a document or just the whole idea?
The whole idea. You'll see as I make my presentation today. Okay. Can someone tell me the difference between a business model and a business plan? Let's begin with a business model. What's a business model? How do you define a business model?
It's more the concept.
Isn't the business model of how you're gonna make the money in the business?
Mhm.
Like who is your target market, what are you gonna do for them, and how much you're gonna sell?
That's part of it, yes.
That's what it is.
The tone of your business, the trajectoire of your business.
Okay.
The model.
That's part of it, yes.
What are you selling? To whom are you selling it to, and how will you sell it?
Okay. Yes, Lamia.
It's the general backbone of your business, including starting from the back end, which is how are you gonna create this product?
Right.
What is your logistics? What are your channels? To the front end is how are you gonna reach your customers? How are you gonna talk to them? How are you gonna advertise them? Who they are, including how are you gonna make money and what are your costs and revenues? All in a piece of paper.
Spot on. Okay. So it's the how, yes.
Just look at the competition.
How, what, why, and where?
How the backbone, the structure on the
And
piece of
That-
paper.
acquire the best
That's one of the things you have
practices.
to do is look at the competition
Acquire the
and
best
differentiate
practices.
yourself.
Yeah.
But you
then
have to.
then you differentiate.
Right. So it's the how and where you will operate your business. Okay, that's what it is. To put it more succinctly, it's the business. Business model shows how an organization creates, I would say, captures and delivers economical value. So in a nutshell, that's what a business model is. What about a business plan? What's the purpose of a business plan?
How do you get there?
How to get there? Okay, it's like your roadmap, right?
Yeah, your roadmap, exactly.
Any other definition of a business plan?
Document and then financial plan.
Okay. Well, financial plan is part of the business plan, right? It's one of the sections. So the proper definition of business plan is it's a written document that describes in detail how a new business is going to achieve its goals. Its layout is a written plan from a marketing, financial, and operational viewpoint. Okay. Notice the distinction between the business model and the business plan? Right. So doesn't that make sense to have a bird's eye view of your business before you put it on paper in detail? Right. This is where you expand on the business model, right? That's what the business plan is used for. Are we in agreement so far?
Yes.
Visually, this is how the business model looks like. It's got 9 building blocks on a structured canvas. So we have the customers that you're going to be serving. We have the value proposition, the revenues you're going to generate, how you're going to retain your customers. We have the key resources, your assets that are going to generate the business. You have your key activities to be able to create your value proposition. You have your key partners, the people that you're going to be either your suppliers and or your partners. Not necessarily your business partners, your internal business partners, but your outsourced partners. And of course, your costs, right? That's something we can't escape. Are going to be costs involved in running the business. So what we do is we answer the who, how, the what. It's supposed to be what? The what, the how, the who, and the why. with regards to offer, the process, the market, and the value you're going to generate. And this is the sequence right here. We begin by identifying the customer segments. And I'm going to go into detail in a few minutes. Number 2 is the value proposition. What's going to be unique about your product or your service that you're going to offer? Why should the customer do business with you? And this is where the competition comes in. Right? How are you going to deliver the value proposition to your customer? How is the customer going to find you? How are you going to look for your customer or customers? And then the customer relationships you're going to develop over time if you want repeat business. The revenue streams, how are you going to make money? Unless you're a non-profit organization, right? This doesn't apply. But we're talking about for-profit organizations here. So what are your revenue streams going to be? Then we're going to talk about the key resources in running the business. Key activities, your key partners, and finally your cost structure. So it's in this sequence. Let's begin with the first one, the customer segments. For whom are we creating value? Who are our most important customers? Is it going to be the general public? Is it going to be geographic? Demographic? Is it going to be B2B, B2C, both? Mass market, niche market, segmented, diversified, or a multi-sided platform? And we're going to see a couple of examples later. When it comes to value propositions, what value do we deliver to the customer? Which one of our customers' problems are we helping to solve? Right? We want to solve a problem. Now, if it's a luxury product, you're not solving a problem, right? You're enhancing someone's lifestyle.
Should be what need you're trying to fulfill your target?
Yes, that's what it's all about. Fulfilling a need or solving a problem, especially when it comes to services, right? Consulting, for example, you're solving someone's problem. What bundles of products and services are we offering to each customer segment? Because if you're dealing with B2B, you're going to have a different approach to B2C. And which customer needs are we satisfying? So you got to be very, very succinct. You got to be very specific. Channels. Once we've established who our market's going to be and what our value proposition is going to be, or USP, through which channels do our customer segments want to be reached? How are the customers going to find us? And how are we going to deliver on our products or services to the customer? The so-called product to market. How are we or will we be reaching them? How are our channels integrated? Which ones work best? Which ones are most cost efficient? So a lot of questions to be answered, right? And hopefully this is done within, you're brainstorming this with more than one person, right? Customer relationships is next. What type of relationship does each of our customer segments expect us to establish and maintain with them? Right? You're going to treat the B2C differently than the B2B, right? Different approach. Which ones have we established already? This is for an existing business. How are they integrated with the rest of our business model? How costly are they? And examples are personal assistance, self-service, automated services. When it comes to private banking, you have a different customer relationship than if you have an online business like Amazon.ca or .com or .uk, right? It's a different customer relationship. Amazon seems to know a lot about us, right? Keep sending us reminders or offers based on our taste, right? Sorry?
I said they have our credit card.
Yes, they do. They have something like 5 million credit cards on file. This is why you have a lot of companies who want to sell their products go through Amazon, right? Knowing that Amazon has 3 million or 5 million credit card holders on file, makes it much easier to sell your product. So self-service, automated services, those are just some examples. Revenue streams. For what value are our customers really willing to pay? Right? You have to justify why they're buying something from you, whether it's a product or a service. Right? Before they become generous with their pocketbook, right? They want to see value. Nowadays, you got to give them more than what they expect. For what do they currently pay? How are they currently paying? Are they paying through? Are they paying cash, credit cards? If you have an e-commerce business, PayPal, perhaps. How would they prefer to pay? How much does each revenue stream contribute to the overall revenue? If you have more than one service that you're providing or more than one product, what percentage of that of each is each product going to be contributing to the overall revenue stream? Key resources. What key resources do our value propositions require? How are you going to deliver on those value propositions? What about your distribution channels? How are you going to deliver on the product or service? Customer relationships, how are you going to do that? Revenue streams, how are you going to create them? And types of resources are physical, right? Like it can be a bricks and mortar retail shop, it could be a manufacturing plant. Intellectual, such as brand, patents, copyrights, data. Human, so-called human assets, right? Personnel. And, of course, financial. Right? It would be nice to have some money to be able to operate and expand. Key activities. What are the key activities that we need to develop or create in order to deliver on our value proposition or propositions? Our distribution channels, customer relationships, revenue streams, production, problem solving, and the platform that we're going to be using, especially if we have a digital business. And then our key partnerships. Who are our key partners? Who are our key suppliers? Which key resources are we acquiring from our partners? Because we can't do everything on our own, right? That's why outsourcing these days is less expensive, and you have less headaches and commitment when you outsource rather than do everything in-house. Of course, there are advantages and disadvantages to each one. Right? Which key activities do partners perform? And it's always good to have more than one partner. In case one fails, or one goes out of business, at least you have a backup. And finally, our cost structure, our main core expenses to be able to operate. What are the most important costs inherent in our business model? Which key resources are most expensive? Which key activities are most expensive? And the characteristics are fixed costs, and we know what they are: salaries, rents, utilities, variable costs, and then we have hopefully our economies of scale, especially if we are cooperating with similar businesses, which car manufacturers are doing these days, right? They're sharing platforms, they're sharing parts. I'm going to use an example of Nespresso. Before I go on, I want to stress that the business model is not just for startups. It's also for existing businesses, whereby you can challenge your existing business model. A very good case in point is the recording industry. They were caught off guard when Napster came along, right, with their digital downloads. So they were in a panic. But instead of sitting down, the executives sitting down and working on a new business, looking at their existing business model and creating a new one or alternative business models, it was easier for them to hire their lawyers or the law firms, right, and to sue teenagers who were downloading illegally. Now, the reason why I like to use Nespresso is because back in 1987, they had their original business model failed. So they had to go back to the drawing board and come up with something sexier, which also was able to retain their customers with regards to consumables. So in 1987, their first business model was they had their partners who were the machine manufacturers, right? They were using the machine manufacturer salespeople to go to offices, B2B, to sell their machines. And that didn't last very, very long. So they went back to the drawing board and they decided to recreate the product and the brand and make it an upscale luxury product for both B2C and B2B. But most of the focus, the majority of the focus was on B2C, direct to the consumer. In pictures, this is what it looks like, the business model, canvas. You got your customer segment, which is the B2C, and your office, the offices, which is the B2B. And you have the value proposition, which is the premium coffee that you're offering, right? In a unique proprietary machine, and with pods which no one else can sell. The distribution channels, as you can see here, we have the, you can call to order your pods. You can mail in your pods. I don't know who uses snail mail to do that these days. You have the retailers, right, that sell the machines. And you have the retailers who, then you have the Nespresso boutiques. Like one of the first ones, by the way, worldwide, was the one here on Crescent Street. Okay, that was the first one. Has anyone been to the Nespresso?
Yeah.
On Crescent? Okay. You have your cafe on the main level, and then upstairs you've got the boutique that sells the machines and the pods. Right?
Upscale.
Yeah, they bought the building for almost close to $2 million. They threw in another $750,000, and that's the look is quite Swiss. I mean, even the design is apparently from Switzerland. It is a Swiss company, right? It's owned by Nestle. The revenues, as you can see here, the small bag is the machines, right? Because not really making money from the machines. This is analogous to the your printers at home, right? They
Give away the printer.
practically give them away
Shark.
because they make money from the consumables, right? From the recurring revenues coming in from the ink itself, whether it's inkjet or whether it's the laser. And then the majority of the revenues, as you can see, it comes from the pods. Key resources. They got their branding and marketing, they got their manufacturing, and they have their distribution. Those are the key resources. Their key activities, they have their membership. Once you buy the machine from them, you got to buy products from them, right? The pods have to be purchased from them. They have a unique patented product, and they also manufacture, well, they outsource the machines to a couple of companies. One is in Switzerland, one is in Italy, and also they have coffee that they get from certain growers. Strategic partners is mainly the coffee growers and the machine manufacturers. Those are their strategic partners. In terms of cost, they have their marketing and branding, they have their manufacturing, and they have their distribution costs. Now we're going to see this in more detail. There you go. Yellow represents the machines themselves, and red represents the Nespresso pods. So with regards to customers, we have mainly the households, but the B2B as well. And that goes for the machines, right? And the pods as well. In terms of the value proposition, you have the machines and then you have the pods. Revenue streams, you have the machine, which is sold once, right? But then you have repetitive pod sales. With regards to channels, this is very, very unique. What they decided to do is they wanted to sell as many machines as possible. So their machines are available at many retail stores, the machines alone. However, when it comes to the pods, they wanted to own the distribution, to control it, for two reasons. To give this cachet of a luxury product that's not easily accessible. Second of all, to be able to control the quality of the product and the distribution. And third of all, and most importantly, to be able to keep the profits for themselves, rather than having to share them with distributors. Okay, so you can buy your machine from the Bay or from HomeSense, but when it comes to the pods themselves, you gotta go through an espresso. Whether by calling a toll-free number, going to the boutique on Crescent, if you're living in Montreal, or online. Okay, and if you still love Post Canada and have the patience, you can also send a form, right? Your order form by mail. I don't know who does that these days. Perhaps the older folks. So there you have it. Retail, machines. When it comes to pods, mail order and call center, Nespresso.com or Nespresso stores. When it comes to customer relationships, once you buy the machines, they'll have you locked in because you have to buy the pods. Okay? And we know they're not very cheap, right? Especially compared to other brands, pods. In terms of key resources, distribution channels for the pods, you have the patents for the machine and for the pods as well. Unfortunately, the patents are running out very, very soon for the pods. The coffee, production facilities, marketing and branding. When it comes to the key activities, you got the production, the marketing and branding, and the B2C distribution, which is right here. Key partners, machine manufacturers and the coffee growers. Cost structure, production, marketing and branding, and B2C distribution. Those are the core expenses. Any questions? Yes.
Never tried it. Is it actually any better than the coffee you can get out of a Keurig or other dispenser type?
It's an acquired taste.
Yeah.
But for some others, it's an illusion.
Yeah,
Right?
it's a style.
Because you're pouring water through a container, right?
Well, they claim that they have a special compressed system that
Never gets hot.
But I think
where the water
espresso-
steam comes out by I don't know how many degrees, and
It never gets hot.
Espresso came out before Keurig and with the concept of the pods,
Yeah.
so they were able to patent it before, and they had a head start by selling the machines to a lot of customers before the others came in. So they had a lot of customers already locked in, and they had a culture already set of the whole homemade coffee, like a barista homemade coffee.
you have the original guys. Right? The only difference between them and Keurig is that they come across as a upscale luxury product. Okay, so if you're somewhat sophisticated, this is what you're going to be drinking. You can show off to your friends when they come home. Right?
If you can get the coffee hot enough, it's okay.
Right. And you know they
It's a terrible machine. I have it. It's just the coffee's not bad, but the it comes out.
It depends who
Cold,
manufactures it.
a very lukewarm cup of coffee. And
The
it's
one
not
that
very
that's
hot.
manufactured in Italy is the
It runs
company
a demi-tasse.
is DeLonghi. Anyone ever heard of the company DeLonghi?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's who manufactures their machines in Italy.
They're not the
I forget
best.
the name of the company that also manufactures some of the models in Switzerland. And it's good that they have two companies, because if one has an issue, if they have an issue with one of them, at least they have another one to fall back on. Okay? You should
But then
never
it's,
rely on one supplier.
It's Nestle. They're the ones who own Nescafe, so
Right.
they pretty much.
A monopoly.
But apparently the coffee beans are superior. Okay, I haven't verified that, so I couldn't tell you.
You never know.
And their pods look pretty fancy, because when you have a large variety, and each one is a different color, an aluminum covering. So it looks very nice, especially if you have it on display.
The marketing is fantastic.
Oh, the marketing is incredible. You're gonna have George Clooney and what's her name in Spanish?
Penelope.
Oh, yes, Benelli.
That's right.
Yeah.
When she comes
So
on.
it's a good example of how to take a commodity like a coffee bean and kind of make it a luxury good.
Yep.
Whether it's Starbucks or Nescafe, it's all in the market.
The same goes for the glasses, by the way. Okay, these glasses, 80% of all the eyewear is manufactured by one company out of Italy called Luxottica. Okay, so they control the market. So much so that they also own Lens Crafters, Pro Vision, a whole bunch of other boutique eyewear companies, and they also own 2 eyewear insurance companies. Okay? We're talking about vertically integrated company, Luxottica. Okay, 80% of the market. And we know that they cost, I mean, we already have here plastic, a wiring, and some screws here. Cost them $30 maximum to manufacture. Yet, they sell them for 200 times, if not more, the price, right? Why? Because a consumer, when they see Chanel or Gucci, right, they're willing to pay what they think it's worth. Right? Luxury. It's a state of mind. Cirque du Soleil. They challenged the existing business models for circuses, and they came up with their own. Here we go. They came up with the concept of the theater and opera. They're going to be targeting the theater and opera customers, right? And in doing so, they're able to charge higher ticket prices, right? Because it's more about theatrics. They got rid of the animals. See, they eliminated the star and animal shows. And they brought in artistic circus without lines. Most of the bookings are from the internet. And their key activity is recruiting talents and training them at their site in Saint Michel. Key resources, artistic feel and atmosphere. That's what the key resources. This is where they differentiate themselves. Right? Key partners, stage and manage spectacles and logistics. And then when it comes to their cost structure, they have a whole bunch. Okay? But for the most part, I just wanted to give you an idea of what they changed from an existing circus business model. And as we know, they're a $1 billion operation. Right? They have shows in 120 countries worldwide. Vegas alone, they have 6 of them. And they've been there for quite some time. Brilliant. So important questions for the business model. How are we solving the problem or meeting the need? That's what we're going to have to solve, right? How are we going to solve a problem or a new need? What are the customers willing to pay for them to enjoy this unique product, service, or have their problem solved? How large is my market? How many of our mentees know how large the market is? I'm having these issues with my present mentee. He has a great product or a great service, but he's confused about his market. Do we have a competitive offering? Who's our competition? And how can we be better and be at least 2 steps above them? What is the status of the market in technology, especially if you're dealing with an online business, e-commerce? How should we present the product in its image? How are we going to present it? This is where marketing and branding comes in, right? And by the way, what's the difference between marketing and branding? Somebody tell me?
I would tend to say branding is the image and the marketing is the strategy.
Very well put. So marketing is strategy and branding is the image you're creating, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And music will do the trick for you too.
And music. So as one person said, as one entrepreneur said it, the problem is that startups fall in love with the solution too quickly, too early. They don't focus enough on the foundation of vision and strategy to make sure it connects to what people want and use. Who disagrees with this? What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Well, a lot of entrepreneurs start by saying the product sells itself.
If they
First
build
mistake.
it,
That's the first
if we
mistake.
build it, they will come.
They assume the customers think like them.
They get so excited, right? They feel that everyone else is going to feel the same way as they are, right?
Yeah.
But without having a strategy. And as we know, hope is not a strategy, right?
John,
James.
John,
Good.
Yes.
one of the most underlying points of a startup is to understand what the need clients are in the products that they wanna sell. It may not be a needed item, they may not want it, they have to find that out first. If they find that out, they can move forward, and if they can't find it out, they're stagnant. That's one point that they don't do at the beginning. And that has to come out in their model.
Once your product becomes a commodity, then it's all about pricing, right? And then if you are selling mainly on price, then forget about your profits. Eventually they're gonna get eroded, and then you're gonna be out of business, right? I'm a strong believer in having a unique product that really differentiates itself, that you can charge a premium price, and deal specifically with a niche market, rather than with the masses.
Also nowadays, I mean, there's a lot more competition on business model rather than on product. There's a lot of products out there. It's very hard to differentiate yourself by the product. But when you create a business model which is either membership based or which is innovative, a new way to get that product to the customer or to give value to the customer, whatever the product may be, then you can compete on a new level. You see what I mean?
That's a good point. And by the way, this is what the canvas looks like, right? Once you start putting the stickies on it, and you're working, you're brainstorming, right? At the end you may have a dozen stickies in each building block, right? And then start eliminating. And you don't need to create just one. You can create alternative business models and then choose the most efficient or most appropriate one that works for your business, or that may work for your business. Okay. And again, if you have an existing business, challenge the existing business model and try to create one or more alternative ones. So this applies to both new startups as well as existing businesses. So number one, understanding the business model. You have to understand what the business model is, how it works, and what your business model looks like. Number two, you gotta prototype alternatives of what could be, right? Give yourself some options. Number three, evaluate your business model design. Why? Because it's all a hypothesis, right? So you gotta test this hypothesis. So testing business models with customer development. So you go out to the market, or your potential market, and this is where you can do your research and find out whether or not your business model is going to succeed. At least that increases the chances of success, right? But if you keep it to yourself, right, and don't do any research, then there's no guarantee that your business model will be valid in the real world. Any questions? Comments? Complaints?
Comments, James.
Yes.
You asked in the beginning a very good
But don't ask
question.
me difficult questions.
No difficult
Because I can't
questions.
answer them. I can't guarantee an answer.
Just a comment.
Okay.
You asked a very good question about the business model, business plan for a startup. Does the business model, or should the business model come before the business plan? I think many of the coaches probably have experienced that business models are not part of the thought process in terms of before the plan. But should it? I think it's a very good question. Should the business model discussion come before the plan? And then you also raise the question of needs, trying to meet needs. But there are also some of the startups that are trying to create needs. And that's how do you build a business model for needs that are not evident in the market yet. Jobs was famous for creating products that there was no perceived need.
So he created
the
all new
second
categories.
head of Sony, when he created the Walkman, there was absolutely no need for a portable device evident at the time. So how do you distinguish the model building process for a need that is not evident? So those are comments, questions that the presentation raises in my mind.
Well, in that case, you have to come up with ideas, or you have to contemplate what this new category or product will serve for the customer. And then you're gonna put a lot of emphasis on the marketing and branding side, right?
That's a good question. I don't know where it was in your building blocks, but it's that visionary point. Where is the market going, or what are the customers, where are they gonna be, and how am I gonna meet them there with my product or solution? Is that one of the early
That's the
steps?
value, that has to do with the value proposition.
Well, it's more the marketing up and the.
Right there.
Yeah.
Good use right there.
Okay.
Value proposition, right in the middle.
Artistic circus without lines. This was a new product, right?
Yeah.
So there you go.
It comes down to your product.
It comes under your product, your
It
value
becomes,
proposition,
it
which is your
starts
product.
with the product
Right.
that you invented, or you created,
Right.
or you found. I mean, it's
What's gonna be unique about your product? That's gonna give a customer an incentive to pay the price that you want or are willing to charge.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
One of the big challenges, I think, is how to get honest feedback from your potential customers to the concept. You first have the entrepreneur syndrome that they don't wanna divulge too much because somebody will steal the idea. But even if you get past that, who do you talk to test the proposition, the value proposition? You know, you talk to family, you talk to your friends, everybody says, oh, that's the best idea I've ever heard.
No, you don't go to your friends and your
Target
relatives.
No, those are the
You're
worst.
gonna identify who your potential customers are and approach them.
So, stand on the street corner.
Well, that apparently was a problem with my, what appears to be ex-mentee, because, I haven't been able to reach him.
What, you had him for several hours?
Yeah. Had him for a solid 9 months, just long enough to have a baby. No, he was running a daycare. He had this concept of placing the daycare closer to where people work as opposed to the traditional model, which is to have it located close to people's homes, which I actually thought was quite a brilliant concept. He claims that he went around to the businesses in the area and talked to them and checked, whether they would be interested, and he got lots of
They all
positive.
said yes, right?
They all thought it was a brilliant idea, but once he spent the money to set it up and everything and went back to these people, they said, well, we can't tell our employees where to park their kids, so, you're on your own. And he got very little support in terms of recruitment.
I think Johnny, what the gap he had when he did his business model, which is great, he did the whole business model, I'm gonna innovate on my business model, I'm gonna do something that others do not do. But then when it went to channels and customer relationships, he dropped the ball. Because he said, okay, I'm gonna go ask, they want daycare next to their job, yes. The company thinks it's great, yes. But then how am I gonna get people to my daycare? How am I gonna lock them in? How am I gonna make sure that I get that revenue? I don't think he went through that entire process.
He didn't go into detail.
Yeah.
And what happens is that, yes, if he just found a way to get the companies to pay a portion of the daycare, or to give a discount if you came from, or find a mechanism to ensure that what the research that he found was translated into a revenue stream, that would definitely have worked, but I don't think he went around the whole story.
It may be something much more basic, Lemia. You have a founder who's a visionary, who will set the plan. The people whose very existence is on making the plan successful is called not the planner, not the visionary, they're managers. Their sole job is to manage deviations from the plan. That's their raison d'etre. You don't need someone who's thinking further afield than how do I manage things that are not working. When you have a visionary, and in a small business you usually have extremely few resources, what you're missing is the guy that's going to manage the deviation from the plan, be it cost, be it resources, be it what have you. You need that kind of key resource.
Usually a startup can't afford to have.
That's key.
That's the mix of resources you need in a startup. You need someone who can do
Execution.
May I
execution.
also suggest that you have an advisory board of some executives outside to give you their feedback as well.
Mhm.
And if you want to test the hypothesis, right, and maybe create a proof of concept, why not go to, why not network with some existing against daycare, successful daycare centers. They don't have to be in Montreal, they could be elsewhere, so you won't be competing with them. And brainstorm with them, with your idea, and see what they think, based on their experience. Maybe they can even test it in their own facilities, and come back and give you their feedback. Right?
That might be something that we could do, you know, to have a panel of 3 or 4 of us. Somebody has an idea, they can come in here and get some unvarnished opinion from people who have business experience. I think too often that's what happens, people, the
So, in other words,
entrepreneurs,
let's have a sounding board, right?
Yeah, where we can try to poke holes in the concept. Precisely at the stage you're talking about,
Right.
at the model, not, you know, getting into all the weeds of the business
No,
plan
no, you
itself,
don't wanna
but
go to the details of
does
business
the
plan.
concept hold water or not? I mean, your point is 100% valid.
And then once you're
Perfect
convinced-
20/20 hindsight. He didn't go the next step.
Yeah.
And then once you're convinced that it works, that's when you take it to the next step, which is working on your business plan, right?
If I may say something, your business model will be a determination once you've started up your business plan. One of the key areas of a business plan is to do an industry analysis, to know exactly what the size of the market is, who the players are, what are they doing, and why are they doing that. And if you have an innovation, why hasn't anyone else done that yet?
And that's where the SWOT analysis comes into play as well. There's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Yeah, and so a lot of people have ideas, and in the case of the person who wanted to open up the daycare near where the people work, there may be reasons why that doesn't succeed, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the marketing or sales expertise of the principal. I look back, going many, many years ago, at the video rental industry, and they were always located in the suburbs, and there were absolutely none of them that were downtown. And you would think, well, wouldn't people find it convenient that just after work, when you're right downtown, you go pick up the video there, and you go home, you don't have to get out of that house and go and rent your video and stuff, and then have to bring it back. The place is right next to work. And there were people who tried to open up video rental places in downtown Montreal, and they all failed, because they never actually did an industry analysis. Had they done that, they would have realized that most people make the rental decisions after supper, not before, and that idea could possibly not succeed. So sometimes there's certain things in an industry, the way it's structured for a very good reason.
Just coming back to the daycare one, the model that he created is that it works in certain places, and it has worked where companies have daycare for their employees, or there's daycares near the job, especially for people who work very, very long hours, and the daycares usually are not regular daycares. You can leave your children longer hours, and you can come down and go back to work if necessary. But usually what happens is that the company you work for pays a portion, or they're located in an area in certain industry, like hospitals, or where the doctors and nurses work very, very long hours, so it's specific to a certain industry. And I don't think your mentee did the entire research when he went to the companies and asked, because I think he asked the companies, right? Did he ask the employees?
Well, I'm not aware, I don't know, that was prior to my getting involved, but what he told me was that he spoke mostly to HR people.
HR.
Yeah.
And
Not the actual users of the system, but the gatekeepers.
the gatekeepers.
Perhaps that was a mistake.
Exactly.
So it wasn't very thorough research. It was
Yeah,
haphazard.
everybody-
He never really
everybody
spoke to
wants
the
to-
customer. He never really spoke to the customer.
Mhm.
No,
The
but
customer
everybody
is
has a
very-
brilliant idea and they want validation that
And
it's
they
a
just want to
brilliant
validate
idea.
it.
No more.
Well, I think just to what Martin was saying about how the business model seems like very basic, right? And wouldn't it take, from my understanding, the business plan to be able to hash through and work out those details, like, that your mentee would need to work out? Or does that part come in the stage of the business
I
model?
would say that's the second part. And then the third part, which is very challenging for many, is the execution part. Taking this information, this theory that you detailed, and putting it into action. A lot of business people fail when it comes to that. But the second part, yes, I agree with you. That's where you expand on what you have on the business model. In your
Which would be
plan.
the business plan,
The business plan, correct?
would be the elaboration of the
That's right.
business model.
That's right.
Right.
I guess-
So you're confirming what I think the business plan could be the blueprint for the model.
It is. The business model is a bird's eye view of what your business,
30,000.
the how and where of your business.
Yeah,
And then the
it's,
You
business
go
plan is the
backwards.
details.
yeah, it's just instead of spending so much time writing a business plan that's not gonna work because you haven't thought of all the various components, you spend some time working on different models and saying, what are your options? What is the service that I wanna provide? How am I gonna provide it? How am I gonna get money? What do I need to actually do this? And trying to figure out how can you work it so that your value proposition is to the target market, that it actually gives you a revenue, that there is a story that is completely linked in your model. Then you go and do the research to make sure that that concept will actually be implementable.
Yeah.
And then,
It's all about risk, right? You wanna be able to assess the industry risk, the business risk, and the financial risk.
Correct.
If you look at it like a banker, you know,
No, forget it. You gotta take the risk. When you believe,
well, risk is a function of knowledge. The more you know, the better calculated
And
your
bankers
risk
are
is.
not in the business of taking risks.
yeah.
They gotta be covered 120%. It's the job of a venture capitalist or an angel investor.
Well, that's an interesting distinction too. You can sort of say the model is more identifying the opportunity or opportunities, and the plan is assessing the risks.
Yeah,
Okay, now we have an idea,
that's a good one.
now we have to actually.
Let's see the rest of it, yeah.
and also, for example, the model allows you to do things that the business plan is too structured for you to do, so it allows you to be creative. Like, for example, we can take the clothing industry. There's a few companies that are now, they've changed the model by creating a membership model. Every month you pay, let's say, $200 or $300, and you get a suit, a trunk, which has like an outfit that is already pre-selected and sent to your door based on your measurements.
Well,
So
it's
you don't-
perfect for me. I
Exactly.
never have to go
But
shopping again.
It's a different model of shopping which they came up with by playing around with the canvas, by saying, okay, what is the core need for this target market, and how can I service it, and how can I get money, how can I lock them in? So now you buy a membership yearly, and you don't ever have to go to a store. They have stylists, they have your measurements, they shop for you, and they send you a trunk every month.
But do they send you a little note saying, have you taken on any weight?
Most probably you can go in and change your measurements at some point, but it's just genius, especially for young men who have, and their target is very specific. It's young men
Absolutely.
who don't have time, they're very busy, who don't have a sense of style but need to dress stylishly, and don't
That's
want
a
to
good
pay for a
point.
personal stylist, a personal shopper, a personal stylist,
Or get married.
or get married.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the wife does all
And
the
the
shopping.
wife does all the shopping. But that's how they came up with, by recreating a new model based on a need.
Or they created a need.
The need was there, we just didn't know we needed it.
The need was there.
Touche.
Okay.
Bill, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, James, I think, again, it's worth coming back to the distinction you made between the business model and the business plan, and I would, in my process that I've kind of worked with entrepreneurs on, it's, the front end is the business model, if you like, where you do the testing and analysis and the brainstorming and all the different scenarios and all the potential risks and consequences and decisions and so on, until you're ready to document it, and that's when you go to the plan. I think the document is kind of, you're confirming and sharing in a document the decisions you've made, so that everybody who participated is aware of them, understood the alternatives, and now we, as a team, we agree this is what we're gonna run with. Or you can present it to the bank and say, this is not a tentative plan, it's maybe this or maybe that. We looked at the alternatives, this is what we're committed to, and we're confident this works.
And this way you have a compelling presentation, right?
Yeah, then the plan makes more sense because you've tested the and you can say, go from the document to the financial
That's
consequences.
the hypothesis, that's right.
I think it's good, yeah, it's a good process, but it's good to think of it that way.
I agree.
Yeah.
Kelsey, I understand that we have an actual case study that we're gonna be working on in this canvas.
I had not prepared anything. I was under the impression you were preparing a case study, so I apologize for that
Okay,
confusion.
I thought you had one already in the office.
I did not, no.
Perhaps you
You
can
can
use
come up
one of
with
your
one.
mentees.
Yeah.
Come up with one.
Anybody want to
Nescafe was good, Cirque du Soleil. They haven't been mentees here?
I'll work for
We only
a
wish.
small business, because Nescafe and Cirque du Soleil are huge businesses. Which do not really apply to, me starting a business.
They're big now.
Just choose a,
Well, they all start small.
Yeah.
But,
you can
their
choose a
models
company
don't apply
everybody
to
knows,
the-
we can
I
do
guess
like
that's the
Google or
question.
Apple,
Start
or
small
things like
by
somebody
thinking
who
big.
challenges the model. Because in the idea, the end business models is just to be creative and create innovation before you plan. So we can just choose a company that everybody knows, we can do Google, Apple, anybody has any.
Who are those?
Well, those are actually available online.
Yeah.
If you wanna see the business model of Google, for example, or Twitter.
Yeah,
Or
I can,
Twitter.
I can maybe.
Twitter, no
relate.
expenses.
I was,
Okay, let's take a look at it.
I was speaking earlier about a mentee. I don't know, it's been a long time since we've talked about him, but to give you a more current example, Symmetris, I don't know if any of you remember that client. It's a web development company, young entrepreneur who was a mentee of mine about 5 years ago. And last night I celebrated with him a ring of his clients and associates. He's now up to 11 employees
Oh, wow.
and celebrating his 10th anniversary. So I recommend him as an example to speak to other mentees or entrepreneurs at some stage. But for me, he was very impressive entrepreneur from the point of view that he understood strategically how to manage his business as a business, and operationally he knew how to manage people, how to manage technology, how to implement. And he was talking last night that what he learned in the process of those 10 years was to be very, very focused on his approach. He didn't want to be just another web developer doing websites, brochure sites. He was very focused on 2 or 3 applications like WordPress and Drupal and so on, and focused more on the back end. The more complicated the website with all the applications and integration, that's what he focused on. So it was a good example of an entrepreneur that had a vision and a concept, a business model, and he's recruited well, he's managed people well, grown his business very well, and he used mentees. When I was speaking to him, he had 2 or 3 other mentors that were helping him in other areas. He was comparing our advice, I think, and choosing what worked best for him. But
Well, we can take
it was
a
a good
case.
example of a small business that I think, again, he started from his basement with 1 associate, eventually grew, moved to an office, hired people, now he's moved to a bigger office. It's a good example.
But this is what a blank actual template looks like that you'd be working on. Okay, I happen to put it on Excel. So you'd be starting off with the customer segment, then your value proposition, and then the channels, right? Then your customer relationships, revenue streams, key resources, key activities, key partners, and finally, your costs.
James, if you wanna do an example, we can do, Kobe, do you remember the one we did last time where I think it was, you have a bicycle and $1,000 to create a business?